The Canterbury Tales is the first book written in English in 1388. It is believed that Chaucer wanted to write 124 tales, but only 24 are written. There are 31 pilgrims, including Haidibelli and Chaucer himself. The pilgrims are persons of all ranks and classes of society, and in the inimitable description of their manners, dresses, person, horses, etc., with which the poet has introduced them, we behold a vast and minute portrait gallery of the social state of England in the 14th century. They are a knight, squire, yeoman, monk, etc. The vitality and the realistic qualities of the various characters are undeniable. Their apparel too is in most cases described and lends additional realism to the portraits. A shift can be seen from a feudal society to a capitalistic one, where each pilgrim in the work has unique stereotypical traits and a story to narrate. The starting point of the journey was Tabard Inn at Southwark, which represents the city and the new focal institution in society. The general prologue to the Canterbury Tales, in some respects the most remarkable product of Chaucer's genius, is an extended dramatis persona for the collection of tales. The old feudal system, where social standing was determined by the amount of land a man held from the king, was giving way to a more open and mercantile economic pattern, especially in London, where Chaucer came from the merchant class. He was not a man of the people, but his origins were equally remote from the nobility. There are no barons among his pilgrims, and they head towards the shrine of Saint Thomas a Becket. The opening lines of the prologue, which are an inversion to the lines in Eliot's The Waste Land, portrays April as the spring month when the showers bring new fertility to the earth, a rebirth as against the representation of April in the wasteland where it is the cruelest month. In short, congregating at the Tabard Inn, the pilgrims decide to tell stories to pass their time on the way to Canterbury. The host of the Tabard Inn sets the rules for the tales. Each of the pilgrims will tell two stories on the way to Canterbury, and two stories while returning. The host will decide whose tale is best for meaningfulness and for fun. They decide to draw lots to see who will tell the first tale, and the knight receives the honor. The knight is the first pilgrim and the first storyteller. He is portrayed as a worthy man who loved chivalry, truth, and honor. He fought various battles at Alexandria, Prus, etc. He carried a horse, was as meek as a maid, and knew no villainy. He was the knight's son, described as a lover and a lusty bachelor. Having curled, pressed locks, he looked as fresh as May, sang and danced throughout his way. He is the servant who accompanies the knight and the squire, who carried a pack of bright colored arrows with feathers along with a dagger. He knew the art of woodcraft well. The portrayal of the nun stands against the traits of what a real, humble nun is expected to be. Therefore, Chaucer uses irony and humor to point towards the vices of the clergy. She is described as simple and coy and took an oath by Saint Loy. She was called Madame Eglantine and did a nasal form of chanting. She imitated French table manners and did not let a morsel drop from her lips. Along with her, she carried small hounds and fed them with expensive bread and milk. Another nun and three priestesses accompanied her. Like the nun, the monk's traits stand opposite to the qualities of a humble, serving monk. He was a manly man who loved hunting, riding, fat swan, and carried greyhounds. He did not believe in the old proverbs enumerating that hunters are not holy men. He is described as wanton and merry, who employed fair language and dalliance to attract maids. His job was to hear confessions and give easy penance to the dying people. He was a student at Oxford, carried books, and rode a lean horse. He carried little gold and spent everything on books. Whatever word he uttered was done with reverence. She is one of the strongest and fascinating characters described by Chaucer, and her traits could be open to feminist interpretations. She was deaf, having got married at the age of 12. She had varied marriage experiences, was married 5 times, and waited for the sixth. A blow on the ears by one of the husbands left her deaf. The bubonic plague in Chaucer's age, which wiped one third of the population, increased the demand for medicine and physicians. These people were corrupt and made money during the outbreak. Here also, the doctor loved gold in special. He is portrayed as a kind, generous man who served the parish well. The didactic message he gave was, "If gold rust, what shall iron do?" He was a peasant, a kind man who paid his taxes regularly. The Knight's Tale is a tale about two knights, Arcite and Palamon, who are captured in battle and imprisoned in Athens under the order of King Theseus. While imprisoned in a tower, both see Emily, the sister of Queen Hippolyta, and fall instantly in love with her. Both knights eventually leave prison separately. A friend of Arcite begs Theseus to release him, while Palamon later escapes. Arcite returns to the Athenian court disguised as a servant, and when Palamon escapes, he suddenly finds Arcite. They fight over Emily, but their fight is stopped when Theseus finds them. Theseus sets the rules for a duel between the two knights for Emily's affection, and each raise an army for a battle a year from that date. Before the battle, Arcite prays to Mars for victory in battle. Emily prays to Diana that she may marry happily, and Palamon prays to Venus to have Emily as his wife. All three gods hear their prayers and argue over whose should get precedence. But Saturn decides to mediate. During their battle, Arcite indeed is victorious, but as soon as he is crowned victor, he is killed. Before he dies, he reconciles with Palamon and tells him that he deserves to marry Emily. The tale is based on an anti Semitic legend of unknown origin that was popular among medieval Christians. The Prioress describes how a widow's devout young son is abducted by Jews, who are supposedly prompted by Satan to murder the child to stop him from singing the hymn O Alma Redemptoris to the Virgin Mary. One of the Jews slits the boy's throat and casts his body into an open sewer. Miraculously, the boy is still able to sing and does so until his mother and a group of Christians find him. A provost condemns the guilty Jews to be executed, and before he dies, the boy explains how the Virgin enabled him to continue singing after his throat was slit. The Brawny Monk relates a series of 17 tragedies based on the fall from glory to various biblical, classical, and contemporary figures, including Lucifer and Adam, Nero and Julius Caesar, Zenobia, a 3rd century queen of Palmyra, and several 14th century kings. After 775 lines of mournful recital, the knight and the host interrupt, bored by the list of disasters. The old Reeve, a woodworker, tells this bawdy tale in response to the miller's tale of a cuckolded carpenter. The story tells how two student clerks, speaking broad northern dialect, avenge themselves on a dishonest miller. The tale is based on the medieval tale of Reynard and Fox, common to French, Flemish, and German literature. The protagonist of this mock heroic story is Chanticleer, a rooster with 7 wives, foremost among them the hen Pertilote. Pertilote dismisses Chanticleer's dream of being attacked and tells him to go about his business. A fox soon approaches and flatters him, recalling the exquisite song of Chanticleer's father. The vain rooster is thus tricked into closing his eyes and crowing, only to be seized by the fox and carried off. As Chanticleer's owners and the animals of the barnyard run after them, Chanticleer suggests that His captor yelled to tell them to turn back. When the fox opens his mouth, the rooster escapes. The tale ends with a warning against flattery. The tale concerns a knight accused of rape, whose life shall be spared if in 1 year he discovers what women most desire. He eventually turns to an ugly old witch who promises him the answer that will save his life if he will do the first thing she asks of him. The answer, that it is mastery, or sovereignty over men, is accepted in court, and the witch then demands that the knight marry her. In bed, she asks him if he would wish her ugly yet faithful or beautiful and faithless. He insists the choice must be hers. This concession of her mastery restores her youth and beauty, and they live happily ever after. The story is a version of the Arthurian romance of the wedding of Sir Gawain and Dame Ragnell, and is similar to one of the tales in the 14th century Confessio Amantis by John Gower. The story draws on a folk tale of familiar theme, that of an old man whose young wife is unfaithful. Old January is deceived by his young wife, May, and her lover, Damian. After January suddenly goes blind, the lovers sneak up to the branches of a pear tree above January's head and begin to make love. An enraged Pluto instantly restores the old man's sight, but Proserpina allows May to outwit him by explaining that she was fighting with Damian in the tree because she had been told that doing so would cause January's sight to be restored. The story describes the sufferings of Constance, daughter of a Christian emperor. When she marries a Syrian sultan who has converted to Christianity, his evil mother conspires to kill all the Christians in the court, including the sultan. Constance alone survives and is cast adrift. Landing in Northumberland, she converts her host's wife and, saved by divine intervention, marries the king, is set adrift by yet another nasty mother in law, and after further misfortunes, reaches Rome, where she is reunited with her husband and her father. The Manciple or Steward tells a story about the origin of the crow, based on the myth of Apollo and Coronis as told in Ovid's Metamorphoses. Phoebus kept a snow white crow that could mimic any human voice. The bird witnesses Phoebus' wife with her lover and informs his keeper. Phoebus kills his wife in a jealous rage. Later, feeling remorseful, he blames the crow for his madness, plucks out its feathers, turns the bird black, and commends it to the devil.